There are people who suppress their emotions, and then there are anime characters, those beings who cry, scream, and fall apart with such intense passion that any therapist would have a meltdown. But don't judge them. Maybe they're not exaggerating. Maybe they're just feeling the same things we all feel, only without the shame of hiding it behind a polite smile. There are those who say it's over the top, that nobody reacts like that in real life. But maybe that's where the secret lies. Anime doesn't try to show us reality, but rather everything that's hidden beneath it. Those emotions we suppress, the ones we swallow down with a forced smile at work or during an awkward family dinner. In anime, those emotions aren't hidden. They turn into lightning, tears, hysterical laughter, or a scream that could wake the dead. Because anime, deep down, is an art form that's not afraid to seem too human. It talks about pain, desire, anger, or love, but does so with a brutal, almost violent honesty. It gives us a distorted mirror that, paradoxically, shows us who we are even better. A reflection where the beautiful and the grotesque live in perfect harmony, where crying over a cartoon isn't just normal, it's inevitable. Anime was born without the obligation to try to please everyone. It doesn't always aim to be a kind or comforting experience. It allows itself the luxury of making us uncomfortable, of lingering too long in a silence, or of pushing an emotion to the point of exhaustion. In that way, its emotional language became a reminder that sensitivity, when exaggerated, can also be a form of truth, while other visual traditions sought the illusion of perfect movement.
Ouch, something bit me.
Anime became obsessed with the soul behind the movement. Sometimes the characters barely move, and yet we feel their world tremble, a shadow over the eyes, a quiver in the lips, and a held breath. It's not about filling every second with action, but about giving weight to every second. Anime also challenges the idea of what's realistic. Impossible proportions, colors that defy logic, tears that look like rivers. Everything is a way to amplify that feeling we often can't describe with words. It's an art that prefers excess over empty silence. And it's in that excess where it finds its beauty. There, exaggeration isn't a mistake, it's a confession. It's a way of saying that feeling too much isn't a flaw, but proof that we're still alive. That emotional freedom turns it into a space where the soul can scream without asking for permission, where love, fear, and anger can take center stage without apologizing. Anime doesn't try to escape from reality. It breaks it down, redraws it, and makes it more human through its lines. And maybe that's why its characters seem so expressive, because in every tear, in every forced smile, there's something we all recognize, but few dare to show. It's also really interesting how these works use symbolism to convey those emotions. The artistic direction of an anime doesn't just show the world, it dissects it. Every color, every shadow, every line is placed as if someone wanted to confess something but couldn't say it out loud. A red sky isn't just a sunset sky, it's an open wound. A still shot isn't silence, it's the echo of what can no longer be put into words. Anime understands that emotion isn't just acted, it's painted, that the soul has its own palette, and sometimes it prefers to use the shades that hurt. Symbols are a secret language. A falling flower isn't just decoration, it's a countdown. The rain doesn't just get you wet, it cleanses the soul. The flickering lights aren't technical glitches, they're heartbeats fading away little by little. Everything in the visual composition seems to have a second meaning, as if the world were full of signs that only those who have felt too much are able to understand. It's a silent language, but it's more precise than any dialogue. The art direction dares to play with the invisible. It can turn a mundane scene into a visual poem, or make a tiny gesture into a tragedy. Okay, but anime comes from manga. So the reason why they're so expressive goes much deeper. Manga was born as a way to tell stories with very few resources. Cheap paper, tight deadlines, and a lot of creativity. Artists had to convey intense emotions with as few lines as possible. In case you didn't know, manga production in Japan is insane. New manga comes out practically every week. They have to produce quickly and as cheaply as possible. And that's why manga, for example, is in black and white and not in color like comics. It's to save ink and to be able to produce more. So they developed a very clear and symbolic visual system. And that's how expressions like the sweat drop, which means discomfort, the bulging vein for anger, or sparkling eyes for excitement were born. It wasn't just a style, it was a way of communicating quickly, precisely, and universally. Every gesture or symbol in manga has a purpose. If a background disappears and fills with diagonal lines, it means speed or tension. If the eyes become huge, it's to express an emotion that overflows the body. These codes were refined until they became a kind of visual language that any reader could understand without the need for text. Thanks to that, manga could convey emotion in seconds, even to readers from different cultures. That expressive simplification also helped create an emotional connection. By eliminating unnecessary details, authors focused on what mattered most: pure emotion. It didn't matter so much if the characters looked realistic, but rather that the reader felt what they were seeing. And that's one of the reasons why manga gets the audience to empathize so quickly with its characters. The drawing acts as a shortcut to emotion. The same symbols and gestures came to life on screen, multiplying their impact. Characters could show anger, sadness, or happiness with the same intensity as on paper, but now accompanied by music, rhythm, and color. What had started as a technical necessity became a cultural hallmark, a way to express feelings openly, directly, and universally. Okay, but it's not just because of mass production or to save ink and paper that anime characters are so expressive. The expressiveness of anime and manga has a much more interesting connection to Japanese culture. Long before anime existed, Japan already had its own stage where emotions were amplified to the point of madness: kabuki theater. There, actors would paint their faces with makeup known as kumidori. They used vibrant colors and artistic lines to highlight the emotion and characteristics of the character. For example, the color red represented strength and bravery, while black was usually associated with cruelty and evil. That symbolic use of color is essential to kabuki storytelling, allowing the audience to understand a character's psychology at a single glance. From those stages sprang the seed of expressiveness that fills anime today, and on the other end was no theater, quieter, more unsettling. The actors wore masks that hardly changed, and yet, with just a slight movement of the head and a bit of light, they could make you believe they were crying or laughing. It was the calm before the collapse. That restrained tension, that art of saying without saying, also survived and found refuge in Japanese animation. Instead of being actors who portray a character, as in the Western sense, no performers are simply narrators who use their visual appearance and movements to convey the essence of the story, rather than acting it out. No, masks are not just essential tools that allow actors to transform their identity and express complex emotions. Each mask is a carefully carved and painted work of art, representing characters that range from gods and demons to human beings. The actor's skill in manipulating shadow and light on the mask is crucial, as it can alter the perception of the facial expression and therefore the character's emotional state. Between both theaters, Japan found a unique way to understand emotion, a balance between stillness and excess, between fire and ash. From that duality, the expressiveness of anime was born. Kabuki taught how to scream, know how to be silent. And in that mix of screams and silences, anime found its language, a language that isn't afraid to bear its emotions, even if it hurts, or perhaps precisely because it hurts. But aside from the connection with ancient theater, in Japan there is a duality within people that defines them as much as the air they breathe: Han and Tateme. Han is what one truly feels. Tateme is what one shows in order to survive among others. It's a silent dance between truth and masks, between what is thought and what is said. In a society where harmony is valued more than sincerity, Tateme is a necessary shield and Han is kept hidden in corners where no one looks. It's the art of smiling while biting your tongue, or your soul, on the inside. Anime became a crack through which what Tateme tries to hide can escape. There, the characters do what many don't dare to: scream, cry, love desperately, or lose their composure without fearing judgment. It's a collective catharsis, an emotional purge that turns taboos into spectacle. The result is almost therapeutic. The characters feel for everyone, bleed for everyone, and sometimes die for everyone. The price of so much restraint needed a release valve, and anime built it with colors, ink, and guttural screams. Han is that secret and brutally honest part of the soul. It finds refuge in every lost gaze and every conversation that breaks into silence. In those moments when the character hesitates, trembles, or simply says nothing, that's when the Tateme crumbles. And that's when the work becomes more human than any confession. It's the moment when the viewer feels they're witnessing something forbidden, the inside of someone with no defenses. What culture represses, art sets free. In this way, anime doesn't just entertain, it confesses. It speaks for everyone who ever had to stay silent out of politeness or fear. Every intense scene, every tear shed is a reminder that beneath order there's always a tremor. In Japan, Han is hidden to keep the peace, but anime, with its poetic boldness, reminds us that peace without truth eventually breaks, even if it's in silence. Deep down, anime characters are so expressive because they come from a culture that understands emotion is transformed into art. Behind every exaggerated tear, every overflowing gesture, every loaded silence, there are centuries of theater, drawing, and human restraint searching for an outlet. Anime isn't afraid to show what many keep quiet, and maybe that's why it connects so deeply with people. Because when a character cries, screams, or laughs to the limit, they're not overdoing it. They're doing what we've all wanted to do at some point, feel without fear. And if you want to know why I think Attack on Titan is the perfect anime, I have a video explaining it, and I'll leave it here for you to watch.